Right, I'm going to strip me lifters and give them a clean out. So basically, I'll make sure you can see this. What you've got in the end of your lifter, you've got a little square sort of retaining spring clip. Just lift that out with a just hook a tool underneath it and pull it out, and then basically lift out your cup that your push rod sits in. Now sometimes if you're lucky you can give these a knock and they'll come out, but because mine's still got oil in it, it's obviously not gonna. Sometimes they can be seized. But what I do is I just get a magnet, stick it into the end and just slowly extract the piston. Right, there's going to be oil poured out at the end of that. Right, so you've got your spring. Piston, and in the top of your piston there's a little flat plate that sits underneath your cup. Now you can leave it at that, clean them up, put them back together, but you can also, in the other end of your piston there's like a cap, and there's 3 slits in the cap, and if you just get your little pointy tool, just get it into the end of a slit and just lever it, just gently, just lever it out. In there there's a little tiny spring, obviously the cap, and what sits in there is this little ball bearing here, and it acts as like a one-way valve. And that is a complete strip down of a lifter. Well, apart from I haven't took the wheels off. The rollers. My rollers are alright, I've checked my rollers on all of them and they're spot on. So what you've got is you've got your lifter body, spring, piston, them little 3, it's like a spring, ball bearing, cap, make up the one-way valve, little flat plate, your cup that your push rod sits in, and your square retaining spring clip, whatever you want to call it. Right, so what I'll do now is I'll knock you off, get all this lot cleaned up, and then we'll come back and show it going back together. The reason I'm taking these apart is basically because of what I found in my oilways. You know, I was on about the silicone that I was finding in my oilways, so I'm just wanting to make sure that I haven't got any silicone stuck anywhere where it shouldn't be. So right, so I'll knock you off, I'll wash these and I'll come back. Right, washed all the parts. There was nout in there, in that one anyways. Right, for putting them back together, what I do is I get the main lifter body and I wrap a bit of blue paper towel around it, around the bottom. Get a socket, 25mm that one is, and I just sit it in, basically so you can stand it up. Right, next thing, let's get your spring. drop your spring in and just make sure it's gone all the way into the bottom properly. Now what I do next is get some of the engine oil that I use, and I just pour a little bit probably about 2/3 of the way up the spring. Now I know there's those online, like on YouTube and that, because there's plenty of videos showing how to strip a lifter and stuff. I know folks say put them together dry, other folks say fill them up with oil. I don't completely fill them, but I put oil in there. It's always worked for me, so I'll always do it that way. Right, what you want to be doing next, just get your ball into the end of your little hole in the end of your piston. Just drop the ball bearing into the hole. Get the little spring. What I do is I just get a dab of assembly lube, just so that the spring will sit on the ball without just falling off. And then basically get the cap, just put the cap straight over the top and then just press it in. Get yourself a screwdriver, just push down on each section just to make sure it's all the way home, and then with my pointy tool, I just shove it down. You can see down there, down the hole. This ball bearing through the hole at the bottom. Just push it a couple of times just to make sure it's nice and free and isn't stuck. So what I do next, just a dab of engine lube, assembly lube, smother the piston, and then drop the piston in. Just grab a rag. Right, next thing, if you get your pointy tool, just shove it down the middle and press your ball bearing down. What that does is it releases any pressure of the oil that's trying to push, when you're trying to push the piston in. Once that's done, a couple of little drops into there. I say a couple of little drops because that's basically all that's left in this tub. Put your flat plate back in, and then your cup or your push rod seat, whatever you want to call it. And then what I do is I just grab a clamp in a vise, I've got a little bar that's got like a radius end on it, and just stick it on the top. Now I can do this by just pushing down on it with my hand, but you need your hands free to get the clip in. So just give it a little turn on the, just hold it steady. It does move about a bit, but that's not to worry about. A little bit of pressure on. And then what happens is you can push the back of the spring clip in first. Get your screwdriver. Push the front of the clip down and in. And then the other side the same. Let the pressure off. There's hardly any pressure on there. And basically just make sure that your clip's all the way in. Just get your little bar and just make sure that you can move it up and down a little bit. And basically that's it. What I do next, I'll just put a bit of assembly lube in the roller. Turn it over and a little bit onto the side. And then I just coat the body in assembly lube. And that's your push rod, your lifter block ready to go back in. Right, knock you off for now. Right, I'm going to put the cam cover back on, but first I need to put my plug back in the top of my cam plate. So I'll take out the old O-ring. Can be a fiddly arse job, but the old O-ring, just scop that out it way over there. Just give it a quick wipe off in the groove, make sure it's clean. Right, we've got a new O-ring here, obviously it comes with the gasket set, and I'm just going to put a dab of oil on it. Right, that's the new O-ring on. Right, and I'm going to put some oil down that hole. Now this is my 2050 engine oil. And then push the plug back in. Right, next thing is grab a new gasket. I've already cleaned the surface. grab the cam cover. In fact, what I'll do, when I'm putting the bolts in, I always put just a tiny dab of low strength Loctite on them. Not a massive amount, just a tiny little drop. And you can see that purple. Once you've got all the bolts in, probably just blocked your view there with my head. Yeah, once you've got all the bolts in and snugged up, torque it up, and it'll only be something like, I usually do it to about 16.5 Newton meters. I know this doesn't make very interesting viewing, but you can always fast forward it if you don't want to watch this bit. Ten bolts altogether. Hold your cam cover on. And once you've got them all in, just make sure you're happy with your alignment. If need be, just get me a little nylon hammer just to give it a tap. Just turn the motor slightly so I can get in at it. Right, and once you're happy with the alignment, as I say, just snug them all up. Right, next thing is we'll torque them up, but before I do that, right, I'll just knock you off for a minute and then we'll come back. Right, I'll torque them all up. Right, and that's your cover torqued up. Obviously I haven't put my points cover on yet, even though there's no points in there to cover, but still call it a points cover. I'll put that on later. Right, and that's it for now. The next thing we'll be doing is putting the pistons and the barrels back on. So I'll knock you off for now and we'll come back.